Hello.
Hello, and welcome to day 6, 7.
I don't know. I think tomorrow will be 2 weeks since Jeff had his stroke.
It still sounds weird.
Doesn't it sound weird?
Yeah. People say, where were you? I had a stroke. It just sounds weird.
I was really busy having a stroke. What? And then you get that. How old are you? 43. What? And then everybody does that. So, yeah.
Some people are more knowledgeable than others. Like one guy at work said, "Oh, so they got you on blood thinners now." Yes, that's true. And
Yeah.
one guy was like, "So was it ischemic or was it something or other?" And so
Dang.
he knew his stuff. Yeah.
All right.
So usually
Or hemorrhagic? Is that what you said?
the older folks seem to know more about it than the youngins. So
yeah. So yes, Jeffrey had a stroke. As you can see, he is talking, he is moving, he is mostly himself.
I'm driving to work.
He's driven to work yesterday and today.
And working.
And actually working. Wow, that's
Getting paid to show up somewhere, yeah.
double whammy. Dang. But last week he took off of work. So the night before Thanksgiving, because a lot of people want to ask us what happened, and we can't repeat it over and over again, and it's been so crazy.
We could, we don't want to.
Just try and get back into normal life that we haven't had time to update everyone. So the night before Thanksgiving, the Wednesday night before, he went to the chiropractor after he got off work. He's been going to chiropractor since he was a teenager with no problem. This is a new chiropractor that adjusted him a little differently. He was going there because he had a headache that he couldn't shake for like a week or two leading up to it. So he went to the chiropractor. He got adjusted, no problem. Everything went fine. He sat up. He lost vision. He got dizzy. He passed out, became unresponsive, and threw up. The chiropractor called 911. The paramedics arrived. And Jeffrey said, "No, I'm fine. I don't want to pay the copay. An ambulance is expensive." And he didn't go. And the paramedics left.
This is all true.
Mm-hmm. And is Jeffrey going to do that again?
No.
All right.
Especially when they say, "Sir, we can't make you go, but we think you should go."
Right. Yeah. 2 paramedics and a chiropractor went, "You really need to go." And he was like, "Nah, I'm cool."
I'm good.
So they called me. Jeff called me and said he didn't sound right. He sounded really far away and weird. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, I got adjusted. I'm at the chiropractor. I'm a little dizzy. I think I'm fine, but they won't let me drive home." Okay, so I left. I got there about 15 minutes later.
I'm still thinking we can go to Thanksgiving. We can continue with our plans.
I got there about 15 minutes later, and I walked in and saw him. He was really not okay. He couldn't speak. He couldn't walk. His speech was very, very slurred. And when he tried to stand up, he leaned off to the left. And his pupils were completely dilated, and they wouldn't constrict. So the chiropractor was shining the pen light in the eyes, going back and forth, and they wouldn't constrict. And then his speech started to slur. And I said, "Get in the car. We're going to the doctor." But shut up, get in the car, we're going to the doctor. So we went to the ER, rush hour traffic, in the rain, in the dark, the night before Thanksgiving.
Pre-Thanksgiving rush hour traffic.
So I got to rush him to the ER. We got to the ER. He's still really out of it. We eventually get back into the ER. They take him back. They do a plethora of tests. They immediately
back there pretty quick, and that's when I knew that I was in trouble. Was how quickly they responded.
Yeah, he got into his room, and somebody came in to look at him, and then they left, and then there were like 6 people that came back in, and they were hooking him all up really quickly, and they immediately put him on IV heparin, which is a blood thinner, and he stayed on that for the next 5 days. So this was at a hospital in the east side of town close to the chiropractor. We were there about 7 or 8 hours. They did the CT scan with the dye contrast. That's when they found the tear in his artery. So when the chiropractor had adjusted him, it had torn the
vertebral artery dissection, which is a thing that can result from chiropractic adjustments. And every time I tell someone, they go, "Oh, hey, like that model." Yes, there was a famous
There's a
model
famous story in the news right now of a model
who died on the table
on the
after
chiropractor's
adjustment.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a known risk. It's rare, but it does
Really
happen. And what we later found out was that it's 1 in every 2 million adjustments.
So I couldn't win the lottery. I get this. So,
But at that point, he had been there about 4 or 5 hours. They did the CT scan, the X-rays, and they said, "We're going to have to transfer you to University Hospital. You need to see a neurosurgeon right away." So that happened, and
I got my ambulance ride after all. So
he got to ride in the transport vehicle. They immediately put a cervical collar on him. He doesn't have it on
it was a precaution.
right now. He doesn't have to wear it as much, but at the time he had to wear it pretty much all the time. They transferred him to university. This was about 1 a.m. I went home to check on the dogs to get him a change of clothes, and then he called and said they're not doing anything until tomorrow morning. Come in the morning. So I did.
She'd had a long day.
He was in the neuro ICU for 2 nights. Then he was downgraded to the regular neuro floor for the next 4 or 5 nights. He was there 5 nights total.
The doc kind of made me feel like a celebrity because I was the only one in the ICU that could communicate back and joke and talk and just do whatever. So
Most other people there had very traumatic brain injuries.
Weren't as lucky. So
yeah. So because the next day was Thanksgiving, the MRI center wasn't open, and
I just hung out.
So there was all this talk of, we're ordering MRIs, we're waiting on this, we're waiting on this. His blood pressure was still really high. They were trying to get his blood thin. They were trying to get his numbers to a certain level. They were trying to monitor his blood constantly. He had so many blood draws that his veins were just blown out. So eventually, on Friday, Black Friday, we finally got our MRI. And then because it was late in the day, we didn't get the results of the MRI until the following Saturday. So at this point, we know that he has a tear in his artery. Everybody suspects this. He has all the symptoms. But within about 24 hours, this slurring speech had gone away. He was much more himself. But, his numbers were still high. His blood levels were still off. His BP is still high. They're trying to get everything down. And they're trying to keep him stable until that MRI happened. So when they did the MRI, even the neurosurgeon, and we really were in the best place, top-notch care, and unbeknownst to me,
UC is the place to be.
It has a stroke center,
Yeah.
and surgeons from all over the world call this particular group of doctors to get their advice. So we didn't know that, which is kind of a good thing that we ended up there. But the head neurosurgeon eventually showed us the MRI images and said even he was surprised by how big the stroke was and by how long the tear was.
And by how little effect it had.
He said it happened in a part of the brain that you don't use much, which sounds really funny, but is actually a part of the brain that doesn't really affect things. So, and if it had gone like a millimeter in any direction or had expanded at all, he would have loss of movement, loss of speech, loss of memory. So I'm going to show a picture. So this is the MRI. And if you're looking down, like this little boop appears his nose, like if you're looking down from the top of his head, all the white area is the stroke. So you can see how huge that is. This little dot is actually what could have done the most damage. If it were any bigger, that's what it would have restricted his movement, his speech, his memory, everything. And then this little area here just happened to fall in a spot that doesn't affect anything. So he got really, really lucky. The artery did sever.
They're just allowing it to heal.
It's supposedly going to heal on its own. He has a lot of blood thinners ahead of him, and he has to be very careful. He can't lift anything. He can't strain to lift anything. He can't cough too hard. He can't sneeze too hard. He can't turn his head too hard, so he wears that cervical collar when he's driving, which he didn't drive at all until like Sunday night.
Monday morning.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I took us home. Never mind.
Yeah. We wanted to test and see if he could do it first. Hang on.
He's fine.
Quiet, hush. So, he's not ever allowed to go to chiropractors again.
Or?
And he's not ever allowed to ride roller coasters again. And the neurosurgeon actually mentioned the Beast by name, which if you are in Cincinnati or you've been to Kings Island, you know how awesome the Beast is.
It can mess you up if you're healthy.
It's pretty legendary. Yeah. That's one of my favorite coasters in the whole world, but he even specifically said, especially not the Beast. So, there are other things we don't know what the limitations are going to be. Right now he's in this healing phase, where this artery is just going to hopefully heal on its own, and he has to be very, very careful. He's on blood thinners. He's on a lot of new medications, and because of that, he has to be really careful. He can't cut himself shaving. He can't do any of those things because he could literally bleed out. For the week that he got home, he was in there Wednesday night. He got discharged Sunday night. So the first week he was home, he was giving himself injections of another blood thinner.
That was awful.
In the stomach and the thighs.
Yeah, those with diabetes, I feel your pain a little bit.
So, and because he's on Coumadin and all these blood thinners, he's bruising a lot more easily. So he's just got like black and blue bruises all over his body and up his arms.
I won't subject you to the visual of that, but
you don't want to see
it.
But. He's off of that now. His levels tested really good last week, which is one of the reasons they let him go back to work. So now he is just on oral medications to manage everything. He has to check his blood pressure twice a day. He has to keep a journal. He has to be very careful with his diet. Even though he had a pretty good diet before, they have to basically say, don't let anything screw up your arteries. Don't let anything clog your arteries. Don't eat anything fried. Don't do this. Don't get any cholesterol in your system. Like it's very much, let's keep the arteries clear. So we go back in March. He gets a follow-up MRI. At that point, we'll know if it's healed. We'll know a better idea of what he's allowed to do in the future. Can he swim? Can he ski? Can he do all the things he likes to do, or are there going to be more restrictions? We don't know. Right now, he got out of the hospital. He's walking. He's talking. He's okay. He has to take it easy. He has to let that heal and just hang tight till March, and then we'll see. So that's what happened. But he is really lucky. I'm pretty sure he's the luckiest man alive right now. He's been told that by me, by the staff at 2 different hospitals, by every internet article he's read, by everyone that looks at him and says, man, you're lucky. By everybody I go to work with, they're like, wow, he's really lucky. And I'm like, yes, he is. So, but in the middle of all this, we just wanted to thank everyone for their good wishes and thoughts and prayers and juju and texts and phone calls and checking in on us, and we really appreciate that. I don't think he realized how much he was loved. Even though I tell him, he doesn't listen. So.
And you don't think at the time that a like or a comment makes a difference, but it does. And that's the modern age, I guess, but it makes a difference.
Especially when you're in the hospital and you've been there all day and you've been
nothing better to do.
Poked and prodded and you're tired and it's impossible to get any sleep in a hospital. So
every 6 hours
he gets blood drawn.
Yep.
And that's just the blood draws. There's the vitals. There's
and the medication.
This is time for this medication. It's time for this medication. It's time for this shot. Are you ready to inject yourself again? Or we're going to watch you do it. So, and then it's just, in the middle of all that, it's just nice to have people check in and say, hey, are you okay? So it makes you feel somewhat normal. But I know when he got home, he slept very deeply for like a solid 2 days just from the sleep deprivation at the hospital and the stress. So we wanted to update sooner, but last week was kind of a blur of doctor's appointments and blood draws. He had to have his blood drawn every day last week.
She was working and going to school.
And driving him to doctor's appointments. I was working sporadically. My work was very understanding, and they let me leave.
But still working.
Leave early if I needed to, or take him to a doctor's appointment if I needed to, or something like that. So they were very understanding about that. But it was also final projects, and I had to have my final project ready for Monday, even though my husband had had a stroke. my professor was like, I'm sorry, but we're going to shut down the kilns. You got to have it done. So I was like, oh, okay. And oh yeah, I have my job. So last week was kind of a blur, and he was home, and he literally had to see the doctor every single day last week, because they had to continually test his blood levels. So now we're kind of in this back to somewhat normal life mode.
More wait and see mode. Really.
Yeah, Jeff goes to work, I go to work, we come home. School is wrapping up for the semester. Now it's like, okay, now what do we do? We have Christmas lights up, thanks to my family, which was wonderful. So now we just kind of hang tight until March, and we see what happens. And he has to be very careful. He wears this big cervical collar when he drives. Anytime there's a possibility he might get jarred in any way. So, when it snows, when it rains, when it's slick, put that on. When, he wants to walk the dog, put it on. So he can't lift anything heavy. So we're coming up with really creative ways to get groceries in and out of the house and laundry around 3 flights of stairs. But we're figuring it out. Yep. But as you can see, he's okay. He got very, 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 very lucky. So that's it. He's all right. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Jeffrey?
No, I think you said it best.
I knew you'd say that. All right.
I'm the color guy. I'm not the play-by-play.
You're the what?
Never mind.
You're not the play-by-play?
Yeah, I'm the color guy.
What's the color guy?
Color guy just adds a few snippets here and there for additional entertainment.
Is it like the annoying guy who goes kapow in like the middle of a...
That's the guy on the radio who goes, that was a superior play. If you want to buy a superior car, go to Superior Hyundai. Yeah. That's that guy.
Except you'd be like, the UC Stroke Center is the stroke aficionado of Cincinnati. I highly recommend it. Right? Mm-hmm. Okay. You're their best spokesman, really, at this point. I think you're the only spokesman at this point.
Well, I was the poster boy for chiropractic, and now everybody talks to me and says, oh, I'm never going back to a chiropractor again.
Yeah. Hmm? Pretty much everybody I work with is like, I'm never going. Everybody he works with is like, dude, I'm never going.
We have a friend who's a chiropractor.
Yeah, it's really rare. And I don't, from what I can tell, chiropractors don't have to report it when it happens. So, and his chiropractor knows that it happened. We already updated him. So it's just kind of an odd thing. There's no real data. Like the neurosurgeons, they're like, oh, it happens all the time. Well, of course, because they see it when it happens. And the chiropractors are like, oh, it never happens. Because they don't want you to know that it happens. So we don't really know what the data is. But we know that that's what happened. He had a vertebral artery dissection from a chiropractic adjustment. And he's got a slight headache now, but he got really, really, really lucky. He had a stroke. He was in the hospital for 5 days. And his life is going to be a little different now. So, probably forever.
But it's at home.
But he's at home. He's still him. And that's good. Yeah.